Good morning, my friends. My name is Darren Gerdes. I'm just a professor trying to provide you with some context in the war in Ukraine. Today is Wednesday, May 22nd, 2024. We'll start here. The armed forces of Ukraine eliminated 1,300 invaders over the course of the day. And if we look at the actual chart of what was happening, 1,300 off the battlefield, only 6 tanks, 22 armored combat vehicles, 41 artillery pieces, 56 UAVs, 59 vehicles, and fuel tanks. Now, it's still hot, and when you look at it, that means 1,300 a day roughly over the last few days. That means that in less than 3 days, 2.79 days, you'll be to 500,000. Like this is where the number is 496,000. You'll be at 500,000, which means we are here on Wednesday, the 22nd. It will be one, two, three by Saturday. And originally I predicted by the beginning of June. And it's before that. It'll be by this weekend that you'll see the casualty numbers for Russia tick up over 500,000. Air Defense Forces destroy all 24 UAVs attacking Ukraine at night. I didn't see anything about missiles, and I didn't see anything really about Ukraine attacking with missiles into Russia. Ukraine took down 220 Russian soldiers, destroyed 32 pieces of enemy equipment on Kharkiv front over the last day. Okay, so 220 is Kharkiv accounts for 220 of the 1,300. So that gives you some perspective of where it is or what's going on there. But that doesn't mean it's not really tough fighting there, even if it's, 220. Worse than Bakhmut, they say, but now we have shells. This is what the Kharkiv defenders say. So let's scroll down and read a little bit about this. Ukrainian soldiers fighting in the Kharkiv direction near Vovchansk say that the situation is hotter than it was around fallen Bakhmut. Really? Hotter than Bakhmut? I mean, that's a pretty powerful statement. But now they have the shells to fight back. So what are we talking about when we're saying only less than 10% is going on around Kharkiv? I thought you just said it was hotter than that. Yeah, but that just also means that the rest of the line is also pretty hot as well. Okay, it's 24/7. Their infantry keeps coming. We keep fighting their attacks. At least we're trying to. Whenever possible, we take them down. We're positioned in the Bakhmut area, or we were positioned in the Bakhmut area before. Now we have been transferred here. It's much hotter here. We didn't have shells there. Here, at least we have shells. They started delivering them. And it's not just true there. It's also true here on the front line. Ukrainians exploit new artillery supply to thwart Russian push. The Ukrainian soldiers reported intense fighting, but a failed Russian assault as Ukraine's drone operators attacked Russian infantry in forest in the Lyman direction. Okay, so they've gotten artillery, but again, remember, the U.S. has not changed its policy, like going back to Kharkiv, regarding Ukrainian strikes inside Russia. They're reaffirming that. Again, the Pentagon, 3 days in a row now, I've seen the Pentagon officials. Yesterday it was Lloyd Austin. The day before, some woman, I can't remember her name, was making the same claim. This is after 4 or 5 days ago where Blinken said this about, hey, we can't tell them what to do with it, but then they've been doubling and tripling down. Our policy hasn't changed. We are focused on providing Ukraine with capabilities that it needs to defend itself within its own sovereign territory, said General Ryder. Okay, now, and they're saying that for a reason. They're sending a particular message. So Tim Snyder is a wealth of information, and I thought this was I just saw this on Twitter, and I thought, this needs to be heard. Let's hear what he has to say about where we are in the historical context.
You said that we're about to be in 1939. I'm going to agree with you in a certain way. My comparison would be 1938. This is 1938, but Czechoslovakia has chosen to fight. Czechoslovakia has chosen to fight. So you have an imperfect democracy. It's the furthest democracy east in Europe. It's not perfect. It has various problems. But when threatened by a larger neighbor, it chooses to resist. In that world where Czechoslovakia resists, there's no Second World War. The Czechs had a good army.
Did you catch that? Like, if Ukraine can thwart Russia here. There's no Second World War or Third World War in this case. But what happened with the Czech version just before World War II?
They could have held the Germans back. It was largely a bluff on the German side. If the Czechs resist, then the French and the British and maybe the Americans eventually start to help. There would have been a conflict, but there wouldn't have been a Second World War. When Germany invaded Poland in 1939, it was invading Poland with the Czech armaments industry, which was the best in the world. It was invading with Slovak soldiers. It was invading from a geographical position that it only gained because it had destroyed Czechoslovakia. So if the Ukrainians give up, or if we give up Ukraine, then it's a different Russia making war in the future. It's a Russia making war with Ukrainian technology, Ukrainian soldiers, from a different geographical position. Then we're in 1939. We're in 1938 now. In effect, what the Ukrainians are letting us do is they're letting us extend 1938. They're helping us to stay out of 1939. So my answer is no, it's not inevitable. The Ukrainians are giving us this chance, and we have to take this chance if we want to prevent a great power war.
And if you let Russia roll over Ukraine, there's a stronger Russia militarily and a more emboldened Russia as a consequence of what just happened. Okay. This I thought was kind of interesting. It puts it in perspective. Yep, that's where he is. Whoa, what just happened? Okay. Russia begins tactical nuclear weapon drills near Ukraine border. Vladimir Putin announces the exercises earlier this month as a warning to the West not to escalate tensions further. Russian forces have started military drills near Ukraine, simulating the use of tactical nuclear weapons in response to what Moscow deems threats from Western officials about increased involvement in the conflict. Again, incentives matter, and we'll come back to that at the end. Vladimir Putin ordered the drills earlier this month in a move Russian officials said was a warning to the West not to escalate tensions further. They're trying to deter the West from allowing boots on the ground or allowing their weapons to be used inside Russia. The Kremlin has particularly been angered by French President Emmanuel Macron, who floated the possibility of sending European troops to fight Russia in Ukraine, and by remarks from UK Foreign Secretary David Cameron, who said Ukraine had the right to use weapons supplied by London to target sites in Russia. The drills are taking place in Russia's southern military district, headquartered in Rostov-on-Don. Okay, now I have a serious question. If Russia moved tactical nuclear weapons to Rostov-on-Don and they were hit by, let's say, a Ukrainian-made drone or missile or something, just hitting headquarters. Now, let's play out a couple scenarios. One, they knew where it was, and the second one, they didn't even know what it was. They just knew it was a military headquarters. Who's at fault? There's a nuclear explosion in Rostov-on-Don because Russia moved those missiles there, or those small tactical nuclear missiles. Do you blame the Ukrainians, or well, I'm sure Russia will, but is it really Ukraine's fault if Russia was being that kind of stupid in what they're doing? Okay, but this is a real problem. This is the ISW. The Kremlin is stepping up the rattling of nuclear weapons in order to influence decision makers on the eve of important discussions in the West, in particular the issue of allowing Ukraine to use Western weapons to defeat military targets on the enemy territory. Experts from the Institute of Study of War say the Kremlin continues its nuclear saber rattling to coincide with major policy discussions in the West as a part of Kremlin reflexive control campaign to influence Western decision makers. Incentives matter. That's what they're trying to do is influence Western decision makers. Don't do this. Don't put boots on the ground. Don't allow your weapons to be used in Russia. Military analysts noted that prominent Kremlin-awarded Mill blogger explicitly tied Russian tactical nuclear weapons exercises to Kremlin efforts to influence Western decision-making, particularly targeting recent discussions about the restrictions on Ukraine's use of Western-provided weapons to strike military targets in Russia. Okay. But at the same time, while they're doing this saber rattling, what's Russia doing? The U.S. is now concerned as Russia places yet another anti-satellite weapon in orbit near U.S. government satellites. But It's the West that's the problem. So in other news, the military is to be paid, the Ukrainian military is to be paid up to 15 days of additional leave for destroyed enemy equipment. I'm not sure that I exactly know what I think about this. Uh, Incentives matter, certainly, but um, is it taking a risk? Is it giving, is the leave for the risk worth it? Or is that just a proper incentive? Or what exactly? The Cabinet of Ministers of Ukraine has approved the procedure for granting additional leave to military personnel for destroyed equipment. The decision assumes that leave is granted to military personnel who are directly involved in the measure to ensure national security and defense during the special period, measures to repel and deter armed aggression of the Russian Federation. The total duration of leave should not exceed 15 calendar days per year, excluding the time required to travel within Ukraine to the place of vacation and back, but no more than 2 days one way, provided that no more than 30% of the total number of military personnel of the relevant unit are absent at a time. Okay, it seems like it's a good program. I'm not sure that I can see exactly what the problems will be, but we have to be careful when we're making some kind of policy because there are unintended consequences that may emerge, and we just got to be careful. But it looks like a good idea. Tell me what you think below. Now, one of the first things that economists will teach you is that incentives matter. This is from the Foundation for Teaching Economics website. Great organization. I've taken classes through them. People respond predictably to positive and negative incentives. This is why Russia's nuclear saber rattling, and this is also why they just created this incentive program to blow up equipment. And while incentives matter, we also have to simultaneously be somewhat humble in our assessments of things. I think Michael McFaul hit it on the head. So many armchair generals assessing whether Ukraine can stop Russia's invading army. I don't know. You don't know either. Can we all just show a little humility in our ability to predict the future? I think that's a great thought. Now, one last thing I'm going to leave you with. I put this poll out yesterday and I said, who's the dumbest? And I didn't think that G was dumb, but clearly most people thought that G was smarter than Lavrov, and Lavrov is known to be a pretty smart guy. And Lavrov is smarter than Putin, and Kadyrov took the award by a 3 to everyone else margin. So congratulations, Mr. Kadyrov. By the way, Patreon board members, we have to decide on when we're going to do our Zoom meeting. Are we going to do it this Saturday, or are we going to do our Zoom meeting in about 3 or 4 weeks? So you let me know what you'd like to do. Thank you for the likes, shares, and the subscribes, and thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.